It was my 66th birthday, a day meant for joy, but a whispered conversation turned it into a nightmare. My own son and his wife, believing me frail after a stroke, plotted to sell my beloved farm and send me away. They thought I was oblivious. I just smiled. Little did they know their betrayal wouldn't break me. It forged a new resolve. Like and share this story, and tell me where you were listening from. The sun dipped low, painting the sky in hues of orange and lavender over Eleanor's beloved 15-acre farmhouse. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of late autumn leaves and the faint aroma of freshly baked apple pie from the kitchen. It was Eleanor's 66th birthday, a milestone that felt both heavy with years and light with the promise of a peaceful evening. This farm, with its rambling gardens and sturdy oak trees, was more than just land. It was a testament to 4 decades of shared dreams, laughter, and hard work with her late husband, George. Every fence post, every renovated room, every planted seed held a memory of their life together. Despite the idyllic setting, a subtle tension pricked at Eleanor. She'd been recovering from a mild stroke a few months prior, and while her physical strength was returning, a certain vulnerability lingered, making her more attuned to the unspoken currents around her. She tried to dismiss it as post-stroke jitters, a common complaint from her physical therapist. Tonight, however, the feeling was particularly persistent. Her caregiver, Clara, bustled about, a beacon of warmth and genuine attention. Clara had only been with Eleanor for 6 months, but in that short time she had become an indispensable presence, a comforting anchor in Eleanor's slightly altered world. She anticipated Eleanor's needs before they were voiced, offered gentle encouragement, and shared anecdotes from her own life that often made Eleanor smile. Clara was, in many ways, more like family than Eleanor's own daughter-in-law, Victoria. Victoria, her son David's wife, sat across from Eleanor in the living room, intermittently glancing up from her phone with a polite, if somewhat distant, smile. Her attention seemed perpetually divided, her fingers scrolling with an almost unconscious rhythm. She exchanged a few curt, functional remarks with Clara, but there was an invisible barrier between them, a polite wall that Clara, with her open, kind demeanor, seemed unable to penetrate. Victoria was beautiful, meticulously put together, but her eyes often held a calculating glint that Eleanor couldn't quite decipher. David, Eleanor's only son, was in the study, purportedly taking an important business call. As the evening wore on, Eleanor felt a familiar ache in her bladder. Excusing herself, she rose slowly, leaning lightly on her cane. The path to the bathroom led past the study, its door slightly ajar. As she approached, hushed voices filtered out, catching her attention. It was Victoria's voice, clear and cold, followed by David's more subdued tones. "She's going to the nursing home as soon as we sell the farm, David." "It's settled," Victoria declared, her voice devoid of any genuine emotion, sounding more like a pronouncement than a discussion. Eleanor froze, her hand hovering near the doorknob. The words hit her with the force of a physical blow, stealing the air from her lungs. She instinctively leaned against the cool wall, trying to make sense of what she was hearing. David's voice, laced with resignation, responded, "Victoria, she'll never agree to leave the farm. You know how much this place means to her. And after the stroke, she's getting worse, David. The stroke was a warning sign, a clear indication that she can no longer manage on her own," Victoria interjected, her tone sharpening. "And honestly, this farm is a burden, a money pit. The repairs alone are draining us. We can't keep pouring our savings into a place that's just going to become more of a liability." Eleanor's heart hammered against her ribs. Getting worse? The farm a money pit? This was her home, her sanctuary, a place filled with life and love. How could they speak of it, and her, with such callous disregard? David sighed, a sound of utter defeat. "But Mom is recovering. Clara is doing a wonderful job. She loves it here." "Love won't pay for her care when her health deteriorates further, and it will," Victoria countered, a chilling certainty in her voice. "She won't have a choice. The money from this place, once we sell it, could pay for years of quality care in a reputable facility, plus finally give us some financial breathing room. We deserve that, David, after all we've done." Eleanor felt her legs give way, her world crumbling around her. She sank to the floor, leaning against the cool plaster, tears pricking at her eyes but refusing to fall. Nursing home, disposal, not care. That was the cold, brutal truth of it. They weren't planning for her well-being. They were planning her eviction, her removal to liquidate her life's work for their own gain. The birthday cheer, the warmth of the farmhouse, all of it evaporated, replaced by a devastating chill. Her son, her only child, was a part of this. A few minutes later, Clara found Eleanor on the porch swing, staring out at the darkening fields, her face pale. Clara had gone looking for her when she hadn't returned from the bathroom. "Eleanor, are you okay?" she asked, her voice laced with genuine concern, her hand gently touching Eleanor's shoulder. Eleanor flinched, then quickly composed herself. She forced a smile, a shaky imitation of her usual warmth. "Just admiring the sunset, dear. It's particularly beautiful tonight." Her voice sounded strangely hollow, even to her own ears. Internally, however, a cold clarity had settled over her, chilling her to the bone, even as it ignited a spark of something fierce within. Her son had broken her heart, undeniably so, but he would not, she vowed, break her spirit. The night stretched endlessly, a dark, heavy blanket woven with Victoria's cruel words. "As soon as we sell the farm, she goes to Cedar Grove." The name of the nursing home, a sterile, institutional place Eleanor had only heard whispers about, now echoed in her mind, a death knell to her independence. Sleep was a distant stranger. Every creak of the old farmhouse, every rustle of leaves outside her window, seemed to whisper the betrayal. Her gaze drifted around the familiar room, a sanctuary filled with objects that told the story of her life. The antique dresser, a wedding gift from George's grandmother, the quilt on her bed, stitched by her own mother. Each piece held a memory, a silent witness to the life she and George had painstakingly built here. They had purchased this land in 1978, a sprawling, neglected 15-acre plot that others saw as a lost cause. But she and George, young and full of boundless energy, had seen potential. They'd seen their future. They'd transformed it from a disaster, overgrown and dilapidated, into their forever home, a vibrant haven where every corner held a piece of their souls. Memories, bittersweet and vivid, flooded her mind. Raising David and his younger sister, Emily, within these very walls. George with his booming laugh and calloused hands, meticulously building the treehouse for the children in the giant oak by the creek, its sturdy planks still bearing the faint marks of their tiny hands and feet. The countless family dinners around the oversized dining table, the arguments and reconciliations, the quiet evenings by the fireplace, the sheer joy of living their lives, simple and full, within this cherished space. She remembered George's peaceful passing 6 years ago, right here in their bedroom. He'd held her hand, his eyes fixed on the setting sun painting the western sky in fiery strokes, a contented sigh escaping his lips as he slipped away. This farm was not just land and buildings. It was the repository of their love story, the living testament to their enduring partnership. To leave it, to be cast out, felt like a second death, a desecration of everything they had created. The first faint hint of dawn, a milky gray light, began to seep through the curtains. Just then, she heard the soft, familiar footsteps of Clara in the hallway, an early riser like herself. Clara, not Mildred. Eleanor corrected herself. Mildred had been her caregiver before the stroke, but had moved to another state to be with her ailing sister. Clara had stepped in seamlessly, embodying all the warmth and compassion Eleanor had come to associate with her previous caregiver. Eleanor pushed herself out of bed, her limbs stiff but her resolve hardening with each passing minute. She found Clara in the kitchen, already humming softly as she ground coffee beans, the rich aroma of cinnamon-spiced coffee beginning to fill the air. Clara turned, her smile brightening as she saw Eleanor. "Good morning, Eleanor. Slept well?" Eleanor managed a weak smile. "Not a wink, dear. Too much on my mind." She poured herself a cup of the fragrant coffee, wrapping her hands around the warm mug, seeking comfort from the heat. Clara looked at her with an understanding gaze, devoid of pity, filled instead with a quiet strength. Taking a deep breath, Eleanor decided. Clara was trustworthy, loyal, and fiercely protective. If anyone could understand, it was her. "Clara, I overheard something last night. Something I wasn't meant to hear. Her voice was barely a whisper, thick with unshed tears. David and Victoria, they want to sell the farm. They want to put me in a nursing home. Clara's face, usually so serene, darkened almost imperceptibly. Her jaw tightened, and her eyes, usually so gentle, held a flash of something akin to anger. Eleanor didn't need words. Clara's reaction confirmed what Eleanor had suspected. This kind of behavior from Victoria wasn't entirely unexpected. Clara had seen the subtle slights, the distant politeness, the lack of genuine connection. I don't understand, Eleanor continued, her voice trembling. Why was it that this woman who had known me only 6 months showed me more genuine care and compassion than my own daughter-in-law of 15 years? The injustice of it twisted in her gut. Clara moved closer, placing a reassuring hand on Eleanor's arm. Some people are just built differently, Eleanor. Some see what they want to see, not what's truly there. Eleanor shook her head, a tear finally escaping and tracing a path down her cheek. It's not just that, Clara. It's that they're making decisions about my life without me, as if I'm already gone, as if I have no say. The thought was suffocating. Clara's grip on her arm firmed. Her voice was calm but resolute. You're still here, Eleanor. You're sitting right here, sharp as a tack, still capable of making your own choices. Her gaze held Eleanor's, strong and unwavering. Don't you ever forget that. Eleanor nodded, wiping away the tear with the back of her hand, a flicker of something new igniting within her. Yes, I am, she said, her voice gaining strength. And I think it's time I made some important ones. The seed of an idea born of betrayal and pain had begun to sprout. It was a terrifying thought, but also exhilarating. The morning light, usually a source of comfort, now felt like an unwelcome spotlight on Eleanor's troubled thoughts. After a quiet breakfast shared with Clara, during which Eleanor kept her counsel, she made her way to the small, sunlit study. Her fingers, a little stiff but steady, thumbed through the worn pages of her old leather address book. Each name, a whisper from the past. She stopped at Davies, Catherine, her college friend, brilliant and sharp-witted, who had gone on to become a respected elder law attorney in the nearby city. A faint sense of relief washed over Eleanor. If anyone could guide her through this bewildering new landscape, it would be Catherine. She picked up the phone, her heart thrumming with a mixture of apprehension and resolve. Catherine, it's Eleanor Vance. A warm, familiar voice responded. Eleanor, what a pleasant surprise. How are you, dear? Eleanor took a deep breath. I need your help, Catherine. Are you free for lunch today? There's something important I need to discuss. She tried to keep her voice steady, but the tremor was undeniable. Catherine paused, then her tone shifted, picking up on the underlying urgency. Of course, Eleanor. My schedule just cleared up. How about that little Italian place we always liked, the Gilded Spoon, at noon? Perfect, Eleanor managed, a flicker of hope igniting within her on. Thank you, Catherine. As she hung up the phone, Eleanor walked over to the large bay window in the study, looking out at the sprawling fields. The sun was higher now, illuminating the golden hues of the autumn landscape. This was her home, the sanctuary she and George had lovingly crafted over decades. It was a place teeming with memories, with life, with the very essence of who she was. Yet, in Victoria's cold calculations, it was nothing more than a money pit. The thought still stung, a fresh wound. But beneath the pain, a strange sense of calm settled over her. She was ready to protect what mattered to her before it was too late. The vulnerability she had felt since her stroke was receding, replaced by a quiet strength she hadn't known she possessed. She found Clara pruning roses in the garden, her back to the house. Clara, Eleanor called softly. Clara straightened, turning with a smile. Would you mind driving me into town this afternoon? I have an appointment to keep. Clara's perceptive eyes met hers, sensing the newfound resolve. Of course, Eleanor. Just let me finish up here, and I'll have the car ready. At the Gilded Spoon, the familiar scent of garlic and oregano hung in the air, but Eleanor barely noticed. Catherine, with her kind eyes and sharp intellect, listened patiently as Eleanor recounted the events of the previous evening. She left nothing out. The hushed conversation in the study, Victoria's chilling pronouncements about the nursing home and selling the farm, David's weak, defeated protests. The words tumbled out, each one a fresh stab of betrayal. Catherine's expression shifted, mirroring Eleanor's own internal turmoil. Her initial concern deepened into genuine shock, then hardened into outright outrage. "Eleanor, that's not just hurtful," Catherine said, her voice firm. "It's deeply disrespectful. To talk about you as if you are not there, as if you're incapable of making your own decisions, it's appalling." Eleanor nodded, the tears she'd held back finally stinging her eyes. "I know, it felt like they were planning my disposal, not my care. And David, my own son, he just let her." Her voice broke slightly. "I need to know my options, Catherine. I won't be forced out of my home, not while I still have breath in my body." Catherine reached across the table, taking Eleanor's hand in a comforting grip. "Eleanor, let's start with the basics. Is the farm entirely in your name?" "Yes," Eleanor confirmed. "George made sure of that after he retired. He wanted me to have complete peace of mind." "Good," Catherine stated, a decisive nod. "Legally, then, no one can force you to sell your home or move into a nursing home. As long as you are deemed mentally competent, which you clearly are, and the property is solely yours, you have absolute control. Your son and daughter-in-law have no legal standing to make those decisions for you." A profound wave of relief washed over Eleanor, but it was quickly followed by a deeper, more resolute feeling. She knew that simply staying wasn't enough. Catherine, with her years of experience in elder law, seemed to read Eleanor's unspoken thoughts. "But I sense there's more to this than just staying in your home, isn't there, Eleanor?" Her gaze was steady, understanding. Eleanor met her eyes, a new fire burning within her. "Yes, Catherine, there is. I want to make sure the farm goes to someone who will love it, truly cherish it, and care for it the way George and I did. Not someone who sees it as nothing but a dollar sign, a means to their own financial breathing room." Her voice was quiet but imbued with a steel that Catherine recognized immediately. This was not merely about defiance. It was about legacy, about protecting a lifetime of love and labor from avarice. Catherine listened intently as Eleanor articulated her desire to secure the farm's future. "Of course, Eleanor," Catherine began, her brows furrowed in thought. "You could always change your will. You have every right to bequeath your property to whomever you choose." Eleanor shook her head, a grim set to her lips. "I've considered that, Catherine, but I feared David and Victoria would contest it. They'd tie it up in court for years, claiming I wasn't of sound mind, especially after my stroke. I want to ensure my security and the farm's now while I'm still alive. I don't want them fighting over it after I'm gone, tearing apart what George and I built." The thought of her beloved farm becoming a legal battleground was unbearable. Catherine's eyes twinkled with a knowing light. A small, enigmatic smile played on her lips. "You have someone in mind for the farm, don't you, Eleanor?" she asked, her voice gentle, probing. Eleanor hesitated for a moment, then a soft smile touched her own lips. Her mind immediately conjured an image of Clara. Clara, with her gentle hands tending to the unruly rose bushes, humming a soft tune. Clara, who meticulously kept the house, not just clean, but infused with a sense of warmth. Clara, who had once confided in Eleanor about her lifelong dream of owning a small organic farm, of working the land, nurturing it, making it thrive. She had spoken with such passion, such genuine love for the soil, that Eleanor had found herself listening raptly, picturing Clara's dreams blossoming on this very land. Clara saw the farm not as a burden, but as a living entity, full of potential. "Yes," Eleanor admitted, her voice barely a whisper, a thrill of possibility running through her. "I do. Is that even possible, Catherine, to transfer ownership while I'm still living here?" Catherine leaned forward, her expression serious but encouraging. "It absolutely is, Eleanor. It sounds like you're thinking of what we call a life estate. It's a powerful legal tool that allows you to transfer the ownership of your property to a designated person, the remainder man, while retaining the absolute right to live on the property for the remainder of your life. During your lifetime, you, as the life tenant, maintain full control over the property. You'd be responsible for taxes, insurance, and maintenance just as you are now." Eleanor listened, her heart quickening with each explanation. "And the new owner?" she asked, picturing Clara. "Could they sell it out from under me?" "No," Catherine affirmed. "Crucially, the new owner cannot sell, mortgage, or make any major structural changes to the property without your express consent while you are still alive and residing there. Your right to live there is paramount and legally protected. Catherine paused, letting the information sink in. Then after your passing, the property would automatically and fully belong to the new owner. It bypasses probate entirely, which means it avoids the public court process and any potential challenges from other potential heirs who might otherwise try to contest a will. A profound sense of relief, a flutter of hope, spread through Eleanor. This was it. This was the solution she hadn't even known existed. A way to protect her beloved farm from falling into indifferent hands and to secure her own future without fear of eviction. It honored George's memory, ensuring their legacy would be cherished. Eleanor looked at Catherine, her eyes alight with conviction. I want to do it. Can we start the paperwork today? The urgency in her voice was palpable. Catherine smiled, a genuine warm smile. Eleanor, I understand your resolve, but with such significant decisions, I always advise my clients to take at least 48 hours to reflect, to ensure there are no lingering doubts. Eleanor met her gaze, her own unwavering. Catherine, I've been thinking about this, whether consciously or not, since last night when I heard them. This isn't a hasty decision. It's a deeply felt one. I won't change my mind. Let's start. Catherine nodded, a flicker of admiration in her eyes. Very well, Eleanor. We can begin drafting the necessary documents this afternoon. But there's one crucial instruction, Eleanor, Catherine added, her voice dropping to a serious tone. Don't tell anyone about your plans. Not your son, not Victoria, not even Clara. Until the legal transaction is complete and recorded, it's best to keep this entirely confidential. It's far better to present them with a completed legal transaction rather than give them an opportunity to interfere before it's finalized. Eleanor understood immediately. Secrecy was her greatest weapon. It hurt, the idea of keeping such a momentous decision from Clara, but Catherine's reasoning was sound. It would protect Clara, too, from any unpleasantness or pressure from David and Victoria. As Clara drove her home later that afternoon, the sun casting long shadows across the fields, Eleanor leaned back in her seat, a profound sense of peace settling over her. The path ahead was certainly different than she had expected, a drastic departure from the quiet twilight years she had envisioned. But sometimes, she mused, a quiet revolution was exactly what was needed. Sometimes different, she realized, could be very, very good. If you're finding Eleanor's story as captivating as I am, don't miss a single moment of this incredible journey. Make sure to hit that like button, share it with your friends, and subscribe to stay updated on all the twists and turns. Now, back to Eleanor's quiet revolution. The ensuing 2 weeks passed in a strange haze of normalcy and secrecy. Eleanor, ever the composed matriarch, maintained her usual routines, tending to her garden, baking with Clara, and reading by the fireplace. Yet beneath this placid exterior, a quiet storm brewed. Her mind was constantly at work, weighing consequences, solidifying her resolve. Each day that passed without incident felt like a small victory, a testament to her newfound strength. David called twice during this period, his conversation strained, punctuated by awkward silences and veiled questions. How are you really feeling, Mom? He'd ask, his voice tinged with an insincere concern. Are you sure the farm isn't becoming too much? We've been talking about you perhaps downsizing, moving somewhere a little less demanding. Eleanor would calmly deflect his suggestions, her voice steady and unwavering. I'm quite comfortable here, David. Clara helps with whatever I can't manage, and I enjoy the peace and quiet. This is my home. Victoria's visits increased in frequency, often unannounced, her presence a jarring note in the tranquil farmhouse. Her smile was saccharine, never quite reaching her calculating eyes as she would survey the house, her gaze lingering on the antiques, the sturdy furniture, the well-maintained structure. Oh, Eleanor, this farm is so much work, isn't it? She'd sigh dramatically, picking at a loose thread on the sofa. Surely you'd prefer somewhere with staff, where everything is taken care of for you, a place where you could truly relax. On one visit, she even brought a box of artisanal chocolates, presenting them with a flourish. Eleanor, with a polite but firm smile, noted that the box clearly stated, contains nuts, a severe allergen for her. Victoria's ignorance, or perhaps indifference, served only to strengthen Eleanor's resolve. Meanwhile, Catherine's office worked with quiet efficiency. Patricia, Catherine's meticulous paralegal, had diligently processed the preliminary paperwork. The property assessment had come back a few days prior, confirming Eleanor's suspicions about the farm's value. Nearly $800,000, a significant sum certainly, and one that clearly fueled Victoria's avarice. Eleanor had spoken to Catherine again to confirm her decision. "I'm more sure than ever, Catherine," she had stated, her voice firm. "The way Victoria's been circling like a vulture, commenting on every little thing, only confirms I'm making the right decision. She sees dollar signs, not a home, not a legacy." Finally, the day arrived, a blustery, rainy Thursday, exactly 16 days after Eleanor's birthday. Clara, oblivious to the momentous occasion, drove Eleanor into town, believing it was a routine follow-up doctor's appointment. The familiar drive was filled with the gentle patter of rain against the windshield, and Clara's cheerful chatter about the day's planned activities back at the farm. Eleanor listened, nodding occasionally, her heart a drumbeat of anticipation in her chest. Instead of the clinic, Clara pulled up outside Catherine Davies' law office. Clara looked confused. "Eleanor, isn't the doctor's office around the corner?" Eleanor simply smiled, a secret joy dancing in her eyes. "Today, Clara, we have a different kind of appointment." Inside Catherine's warm office, a small festive scene awaited them. A delicate porcelain plate held a single slice of vanilla cake, adorned with a flickering candle, and a cup of freshly brewed tea. Catherine stood beside her desk, a welcoming smile on her face. Clara's confusion deepened, but before she could voice a question, Eleanor took her hand, her touch gentle but firm. "Clara," Eleanor began, her voice thick with emotion, "you've been more than just a caregiver to me these past months. You've been a friend, a confidant, and more family to me than some of my actual relatives." Clara's eyes, wide with surprise, met Eleanor's. "Eleanor, what is all this?" she whispered, a blush rising on her cheeks. Eleanor squeezed her hand. "Clara, I'm transferring ownership of the farm to you while retaining a life estate for myself." Clara's mouth fell open, her jaw going slack in utter shock. Her eyes darted from Eleanor to Catherine, then back again, trying to process the unbelievable declaration. "No, Eleanor," she stammered, shaking her head. "I can't possibly accept. It's too much. And your son? Won't he be terribly upset?" Eleanor took a deep breath, her gaze unwavering. "My son, Clara, along with his wife, Victoria, has other plans for this farm, and for me. Plans that involve selling it for their own financial gain and sending me to a nursing home. They believe I'm incapable of making my own decisions, that I'm just a burden. I overheard them, Clara, planning my future without me." Catherine stepped forward, her voice calm and professional, explaining the legal intricacies of the life estate in clearer terms. She detailed how Eleanor would retain her right to live on the farm for life, maintain control, and how the property would pass to Clara directly upon Eleanor's passing, bypassing probate in any challenges. Clara listened, tears welling in her eyes, not just at the astonishing gift, but at the raw betrayal Eleanor had endured. When Catherine finished, Clara looked at Eleanor, her own eyes brimming with unshed tears. "Eleanor, I don't know what to say." "Say yes, Clara," Eleanor urged, a gentle smile returning to her face. "Say you'll cherish it, nurture it, and make it thrive." With trembling hands and tears streaming down her face, Clara signed the documents, her name now legally bound to Willow Creek Farm. The weight of the moment was immense, transforming not just Clara's future, but Eleanor's as well. It was done, the farm was safe. The drive back to the farm was steeped in a profound silence, broken only by the steady rhythm of the windshield wipers. Both Eleanor and Clara were lost in their own thoughts, processing the enormity of the life-altering legal transfer that had just taken place. The rain-streaked windows mirrored the emotional intensity of the day. Finally, as Clara turned onto the long gravel driveway leading to the farmhouse, she broke the quiet. "Eleanor," she began, her voice soft, "when will you tell David?" Eleanor sighed, a mix of apprehension and resolution swirling within her. "Soon, Clara. I need to find the right moment. But it will be soon." Little did she know, the moment was already finding them. As Clara pulled the car to a stop and they stepped onto the porch, the familiar sight of David and Victoria's sleek SUV appeared, crunching to a halt behind Clara's modest sedan. Victoria emerged, a strained, forced cheer plastered across her face, brochures clutched in her hand. "Mom, what a coincidence," she called out, her voice a little too loud, a little too bright. "We were just stopping by to share some exciting news." Eleanor, her heart rate quickening, gripped Clara's arm discreetly. A sense of calm, forged in the fires of betrayal and determination, settled over her. "What perfect timing," Eleanor replied, her voice remarkably steady. "I have some exciting news, too." Inside the living room, the atmosphere was thick with unspoken tension. David, looking uncomfortable but subservient, took the lead. He laid out glossy brochures on the coffee table, emblazoned with images of manicured lawns and smiling seniors. "Mom, Victoria and I have done a lot of research," he began, gesturing vaguely at the brochures. "We really think Cedar Grove is the perfect place for you. It has excellent facilities, a wonderful community, and we've even started talking to a realtor about selling the farm. It's what's best for you, truly." His words echoed Victoria's pronouncements from weeks ago, cold and detached. Eleanor watched him, her expression unreadable. Then she fixed her gaze on Victoria, who was observing the scene with a triumphant smirk. "Best for me, David?" Eleanor asked, her voice quiet, almost dangerously so. "Is that what you call it? By going behind my back? By discussing putting me in a home without even consulting me first? On my own birthday, no less?" Victoria's forced facade shattered instantly. Her eyes narrowed and her face contorted with barely contained rage. "Don't be so dramatic, Eleanor," she spat, her voice rising. "You're getting old. You've had a stroke. You can't keep this place up. It's selfish of you to cling to it. I'm tired of this farm eating up our resources, draining what should be our inheritance. This property is sitting here, worth a small fortune, while we struggle." Her confession, raw and ugly, hung in the air. Victoria's contempt then swiveled toward Clara, who stood silently beside Eleanor, her face pale. "And I'm tired of paid help acting like family," Victoria sneered, her voice dripping with disdain. "You're an employee, Clara, not a daughter. Don't forget your place." Eleanor, maintaining a serene composure that belied the turmoil within, gently set her teacup down on its saucer. The delicate porcelain clinked softly. "I think it's time for both of you to leave," she stated, her voice firm, leaving no room for argument. But Victoria was not done. "Not until you sign these papers, Eleanor," she shrieked, pulling a thick stack of documents from her bag. "These are the sale agreements. We have buyers ready to make an offer." Eleanor met Victoria's furious gaze, a faint smile playing on her lips. "I can't sign those papers, Victoria," she said, her voice clear and calm, delivering the bombshell with surgical precision. "Because as of this afternoon, I no longer own the farm." The room fell silent. David, who had been nervously shifting on the sofa, seemed to deflate, sinking deeper into the cushions, his face aghast. Victoria froze, her jaw hanging open, her eyes wide with disbelief. "What are you talking about?" she finally stammered, her voice a dangerous whisper. "You don't own it? What did you do?" "I transferred the ownership of Willow Creek Farm today, Victoria," Eleanor explained, her composure unwavering. "To Clara. It's a legal, binding life estate. I retain the right to live here for the rest of my days, but the property itself now belongs to her. It bypasses all probate, and there's nothing you can do about it." Victoria's face contorted with a mixture of disbelief and pure, unadulterated rage. "You selfish old hag! You gave away our inheritance to a hired hand? I'll sue. We'll tie you up in court for years. This is illegal," she screamed, her voice echoing through the usually peaceful farmhouse. David finally stirred, his voice weak. "Mom, you could have talked to us." Eleanor turned to her son, her eyes holding a deep sorrow. "The way you talked to me, David, planning my institutionalization behind my back, discussing my disposal as if I were a piece of property to be liquidated." Victoria, sputtering with incoherent threats, stormed out of the house, slamming the door behind her. David, looking utterly lost and defeated, followed, his shoulders slumped. The sound of their SUV peeling away down the gravel driveway was a symphony to Eleanor's ears. Days later, Eleanor's daughter Emily had arrived. Emily, who lived across the country, had always been more understanding, less entangled in the farm's perceived financial value. Eleanor recounted the story, and Emily listened, her eyes thoughtful. "Mom," Emily said, taking Eleanor's hand, "I think it's your farm and your life, and honestly, I think Dad would approve." It was the affirmation Eleanor needed. Later, Eleanor and Clara sat on the porch swing, watching the last rays of sunlight paint the western sky. Their eyes, bright with unshed tears, held a shared future. "The eastern field," Eleanor mused, a gentle smile on her face. "It's always had such good soil. We could start an organic vegetable garden there, and then we could sell our produce at the farmer's market, just like you always dreamed." Clara's smile was radiant, a promise of new beginnings. Eleanor felt George's presence in the quiet rustle of the leaves, in the familiar scent of the earth. He would approve. He would understand. In her home, cared for by the genuine heart of someone who truly loved her and the land, Eleanor had found a profound, lasting peace.